Okay, looks like I'm live. So, just doing a little bit more work today, and I'm waiting for Blender to load up. But also gonna dig through some files on that I have because I want to do a video on the Operation Gamora raid. So that's the destruction of Hamburg in July '43, and the Americans were a little bit involved with that. And I kind of want to cover all the raids, so probably going to work my way out. But I want to start going through the American raids. So these are some documents I recently got from Maxwell. And I'm going to see what's in them. I took a look through them last night just to figure out where everything is. But going to go in detail. So there were 2 American raids on Hamburg. The British launched the first raid on July 24th, and then the night of July 24th, 25th. And then the next day... God, the fire alarm's been going off all day here. Fortunately, that's just stopped there. But the Americans do 2 follow-up raids in between. So the RAF attacks during the night. The following morning, the 8th Air Force attacks Hamburg with 2 combat wings. That's about 6 groups. And they actually get mauled pretty badly, which will be an interesting kind of thing to try to model. And then the next day, they fly again. The Hamburg force this time manages to escape on the second day, and the force going after Kiel gets mauled instead. And then the following night, Bomber Command goes back to Hamburg. That's the night of the firestorm. At that point, the Americans have basically gone off elsewhere, so they're not involved. And then Bomber Command does 2 more raids after that. But it's 6 raids in total, 2 American, 4 British. And we'll see if I can't do a 6-parter, I guess, about that. I kind of would like to get it done in time for the 80th anniversary, but I might be giving myself way too much work in the next 3 months. This is still loading, of course. So, mission 25 July, 102 combat wing considered abortive. So, yeah, there was the 101, 102, and 103 are the 3 combat wings. And the 102 was supposed to go to Kiel, but it ends up aborting because of it doesn't get its formation attacked. And then you got these big maps, which I'd honestly need to cut them and paste them together. Mitchell's, these are the RAF. This is the Ramrod raid. That one is a diversion. The American raid's pretty interesting. There's a lot of like diversionary raids in the RAF. 2nd Tactical Air Force, I think, because they control the Mitchells at this point. And they do a bombing raid around Amsterdam area to draw the Germans, which actually does work. Are these faded, or is this just... Yeah, so much faded documents. It's the problem with these... I mean, sometimes the documents are really good quality, other times it's just like... things have faded. These documents, I believe they were microfilmed in like the 70s at some point. God, I only can imagine what condition they're in today, because if this is the kind of fading you see over documents after 30 years, then talk about 80 years. Oof. I'm not sure if it'd be worth trying to... it's probably colored. That's probably what's going on. Because microfilm's just black and white. So you won't actually see when they color stuff. It won't really show up well in the microfilm. So the originals, because this might be German fighters. So they might have used a different color for that. And that's what I mean by fading. And blurry as well. But I mean, it's free. Get what you got. Target Hamburg Kiel. And these are probably the... I can play around with this on GIMP and try to see if I can increase the visibility. I've done that before. It's just, unfortunately, in this program, I can't really do it, even though they're all screenshots. But, yeah, let's give it a try. Select. Nope, nope, neither of those. Let's reset. Black level kind of helps, but it's so... You have to do it so many times. Brightness contrast. Nah, that doesn't help. That helps a little. That helps quite a bit, actually. That's better. Escorted results? Tons dropped, tons dropped. The general plan called for both. I think there might be a better copy later on. This just strikes me as the first page. I've seen these before. There might be better ones later on. So instead of trying to read that and destroy my eyes, yeah, you can see the contrast. Second page is great. Okay, it'd be worth reading that first page then, because it looks like the following pages are good quality. Where is it? The general plan called for both something, probably both groups. Jeez, I gotta change this a little bit more. Heavy sigh as I join. Yeah. Now I'm just trying to read these American documents while Blender it's finally loaded up. But as I said, I want to do a 6-part documentary, one for each raid on the raids on Hamburg. But I want to include the American raids in it because I think it's kind of a forgotten part. So I got my hands on the U.S. documents for these raids because I have the bomber reports for the British, obviously, through that website. But the American reports are a little more. Anyways, I know I've seen this one before, but you kind of get like, it's a bit hit or miss with the quality of the images you get, because stuff faded over time. So that's what that sigh was about. Trying to read this one. I'm sure there's a better copy later on, because you tend to find a lot of repeats, but I'm just too stubborn to go look. So I'll play around with the colors a bit more. That wasn't that one. Was it invert's the other option I didn't realize was there though. I wonder if I don't know if I've made it any easier to read though. Well, technically 80 years old, but when you look at the actual documents, I mean, I don't know when they were microfilmed, but I suspect they were microfilmed actually. Like, I think they were microfilmed 30 years after the war. So, they were digitized more recently, but the original microfilm filming was done when they were declassified, I think. Might even be earlier. But I've seen stuff with the stamp for declassified. It's like declassified 1970s sometime. And so they were microfilmed sometime after the 1970s. So I think they're not quite 80 years old in these images. I imagine they're probably even worse today. Anyways, I know I've seen the secondary part of this somewhere else. It's interesting. I got, there's two types of things you can find. You can find the mission narratives and then the tactical narratives. And I'm not entirely sure what the difference between the two is. However, the tactical narratives, when I looked at it last night, seem to have less information than the mission narratives. But I'm not sure what the difference in the documents were. But when you look at the 8th Air Force stuff, there's mission narratives and tactical narratives. And the mission narratives have more detail. But, anywho, I think I can, instead of screwing around with this, I think I can find a better image later on. It's pretty interesting how much the Americans did know about intelligence they had on the German strength. So this report was written about a month after the raid, I think. So the enemy had 10 first-line single-engine fighter squadrons in Denmark, 15 in Westland area, 30 each in Bremen and Hamburg. His main strength amounting to 60 single-engine fighters in the Vengerouge area, maybe. It could be thrown into battle against the Hamburg bomber force. The total German fighter force was decreased by 15 aircraft over the previous month's total. It's interesting because they had this much detail about the German fighter strength, but then you also had the bombers coming back with the American bombers very much absurdly overclaiming the number of fighters they shot down. And it's difficult to know how much the 8th Air Force believed their gunners or not, because there was skepticism. But I've also seen stuff to suggest the 8th Air Force essentially confirmed half their gunner claims, when in fact the gunner claims were closer to like only 15 to 20% of the claims were valid. So it's like, I've been curious how much they believe their gunners' claims, because sending your bombers on deep penetration raids to Schweinfurt makes a little bit more sense if you think your bombers have shot down hundreds and hundreds of German fighters the last couple of months. So they estimated about 300 German fighter sorties against the raid in the Hamburg area, I think. Second wave made up of 3 staff. I don't know how to say that word as well. Gonna have to look it up. Was more successful. Some of the Staffel made contact with the bombers when they later were turning off to northeast course. Yeah, the American bombers, from my understanding, got to Hamburg relatively unscathed, but the flak over Hamburg was so bad that they were pretty badly shot up, and a lot of the stragglers were picked off. In particular, Point for Hall, where ridiculous bomber kills against fighters are just claimed but divinely confirmed. Point for Hall, I'm not entirely sure, I'm not quite sure what you're saying there, Cloby. I mean, I feel like you're referencing something and I might not be getting it. Summing up the mission, although the weather was a disruptive factor causing some task force to drop on targets of opportunity, quote unquote, the results were highly satisfactory. All assigned selected targets were hit with good concentrations of bomb. Claims were high, showing the alertness of crews in spite of no escort. Yeah, oh, Hearts of Iron. Yeah, I know. I always found that a little, I know in Hearts of Iron when I played it, it was like, oh, I know exactly how many fighters I shot down. Also, the game War in the West, what I can't remember what the guy's name is, who it's named after. I could never tell if the showing the destroyed numbers of enemy aircraft. I could never tell if that was supposed to be accurate or reflect overclaiming. But yeah, games kind of give you a bit of unrealistic information in that regard. Success of enemy's plan. The enemy had every advantage to achieve great success. His well-trained crews were eager to fight, but his controllers showed a marked degree of indecision as to what force should bear the brunt of the concentrated effort. The enemy discovered his folly of denuding the area of fighters, and shortly after the raid increased. Yeah, I mean, it's... This is not a unfair assessment, though. You also the tendency of people in a war to maybe want to hype up their own success versus the enemy's failures. But I have kind of taken... I looked through the tactical narrative, and the German fighter controllers did have a lot of trouble with this raid, even though they ultimately managed to maul the Hamburg force pretty well. The other force got through relatively unscathed. So 3rd Bombardment Wing... Oh, so this is a diversionary. I think this is the diversionary? 30 July. Oh, this might be a, This might be a, Sometimes they have incorrect pages in the folders. This, 30 July. I'm not sure if this is for the Hamburg Raid or... It's talking about Ghent, so that's going to be, what, the Netherlands? Or, no, 25 July. Yeah, I've played a bit of Radio General. I like it. I like that kind of fog of war as well. It makes it a lot more interesting. Okay, no, 3rd Bombardment Wing. This is probably B-26s flying a diversionary raid for the Hamburg Raid. Bomber Command narrative of operations. 323 B-17s were dispatched to attack targets in northwest Germany. 218 aircraft dropped bombs on the following targets. 68 on Hamburg with good results. 67 on Kiel with good results. 18 on an airfield with fair results. 14 on Haida with poor results. 51 on targets of opportunity with unobserved results. I wonder what those are. Fighter support was not furnished. Yeah, they sent them on fighter sweeps. They encountered intense enemy opposition. 19 B-17s are missing. Claims are 44 destroyed German fighters, 6 probable, and 27 damaged. The 384th is the worst suffering group in this unit. They lose 7 of the 21 aircraft that they dispatch. And 3 turned back, so that only meant there was, 18? So they lose 7 of the 18, which is a pretty horrendous casualty rate for the unit. But all the other ones got off relatively light, so luck of the draw, unfortunately. This effort turns back, I think, and then the other force that actually went even further than, I think the 4th wing went even further. So Hamburg, Blohm & Voss yards and diesel engine works, targets of opportunity. 68 B-17s dropped 400, 500-pound fused bombs. Good results on the Blohm & Voss yards. Diesel engine works at Machine and Fabric Augsburg and Nuremberg at Hamburg. Direct hit on a cargo liner. Hits on the oil tanks. 14 B-17s dropped on 1,700 hours on Haiti. At least 5 bursts on the railroad and at least 5 on the town. Main concentration on the eastern outskirts. So probably hit the town more than anything else. 18 B-17s attacked targets of opportunity with unobserved results. 59 B-17s dispatched to attack another target in northern Germany returned without bombing because of failure of group to get into formation. 82 aircraft failed to bomb, 13 because of mechanical issues and personnel, 10 because AC was lost without definite knowledge of having bombed, 59 failed to rendezvous because of poor visibility. Really gives you an idea for the difficulties the Americans were having at this time just even forming up, because it took hours to do that, I think. Considerably more than 100 enemy aircraft were encountered. Reported Focke-Wulf 190s, 109s, 110s, 210s, 88s, and Dornier 217s. Yeah, because the German night fighters got involved in this as well. Attacks began just before the German coast, and for almost 2 hours until formation was about 30 miles out to sea. 1 killed on board, 5 slightly wounded, 150 missing from the 15 B-17s lost. 4 were claimed by flak, and 11 for unknown reasons. 49 bombers damaged. Flak, meager to moderate, fairly accurate. Flak was encountered all the way from Cuxhaven to the target. Hey Arnold, how are you doing? Just taking a look at some documents I got for the American part of the bombing on during the Hamburg Raids in July 1943. So, because I want to model these alongside the RAF raids on Hamburg. So this is the first American raid. There's the British opened the attack on July 24th, and then the following morning the 8th Air Force strikes Hamburg. Ooh, they have the routes, that's nice, but they also have a map, so that I can use that. Weather. It's interesting, 6 enemy aircraft were observed at 1,000 feet laying a smoke screen over the target area. 3 B-17s came up to formation over enemy territory, stayed at the same level about 1,000 yards away. White bursts apparently from 20mm cannons were seen at the waist gun positions. 1 B-17 did not turn back towards Germany until mid-channel. So it's kind of interesting because when you read... there was a lot of stuff during the war about from American crews claiming the Germans were using captured B-17s that essentially crash landed and were repaired to like try to infiltrate the American formations or to attack the American bombers. And I don't think anyone was able to find any definitive proof after the war. But there's all this stuff which like they found no proof after the war. That doesn't mean it didn't happen because I think something like 99% of Luftwaffe records from World War II essentially were destroyed during the war, especially during the final months when Hitler put the Nero Decree into effect. So like the vast majority of Luftwaffe documents didn't survive World War II. So you get this stuff where you have at the time crews claiming these things which we just don't have any definitive evidence for after the war. So you don't see it ever really written up in the proper like scholarly history books that rely on a lot on secondary sources, other than maybe mentioning this because there's no information for sure about it. But you find a lot of stuff in the actual reports where there's all this like 6 enemy aircraft laying a smoke screen over the target area. Like, did the Germans actually have that? I mean, I haven't read anything in post-war books about it, but you see it in the documents from the time. But of course, your eyes, there's so much stuff you can see in those situations where it's, you know, how much do you trust the people's eyes at the time? Because the gunners were also claiming huge numbers of German fighters shot down, and that wasn't true. So, yeah. Were the British and American joint raids, were they segregated raids? They were coordinated. In fact, to a certain extent, So I have the running. I do think the Americans and British coordinated their raids a bit more than some books give them credit for. For example, they're both hitting a lot of the German and French port cities in early 1943, and this is when they're focusing on the U-boats. The Americans don't really start going into deeper raids on Germany until the summer. So the Hamburg raid. So you have, like, in January, both Bomber Command and the 8th Air Force are striking a lot of the French port cities, and Bomber Command is also hitting German port cities like Hamburg or Wilhelmshaven or Kiel, and this is part of targeting the U-boats in 43. And then Bomber Command switches over in March to really focusing on the Ruhr towns. But the 8th Air Force doesn't have enough bombers, so they kind of stay focusing on the French port cities and then the German port cities. So these very kind of peripheral targets. And then by, I want to say March or maybe April, the 8th Air Force starts feeling a bit more confident that it has enough bombers to actually start going past the coast in Germany. And so the Hamburg raids are definitely a coordinated bombing attack. And a lot of the books will talk about that. However, it's not a great experience for the Americans because the first British bombing raid on Hamburg is so effective. When the Americans arrive over, there's still so much smoke burning from the night before. They actually have a hard time finding the targets they wanted to bomb. So it actually kind of sours them a little bit on these joint raids, or at least bombing targets so quickly after the other. Yeah, the other thing, Arnold, about the scarecrows, it's interesting. You will find in the operational research section stuff for Bomber Command, they talk about scarecrows, which I find is interesting because I have read some books where they claim that essentially Bomber Command was telling the crews that scarecrows were a thing, so from a morale perspective, like oh, don't worry about those things that look like bombers exploding. That's just German scarecrow shells. And it's kind of, those books tend to write it as a bit of a Bomber Command was trying to trick its own crews so they wouldn't be so impacted by the losses. But when you see the operational research section guys talking about scarecrow shells, I don't buy that argument. I think there was a belief. I think it was something that Bomber Command believed as well, that the Germans were using scarecrow shells. So I think the crews talked about it, and Bomber Command was like, oh, maybe that is the case. Because I don't think smart guys like the operational research section would talk about Germans using scarecrow shells as part of in these top secret reports, unless they actually believe these things existed themselves. So I think, the scarecrow shells, there was no proof of it after the war, and they figure that it was probably just bombers exploding. Or the alternative I've heard is that they might have been German heavier caliber stuff, so the 88s, but if you're talking about the 128 millimeter flak, they would have had a significantly larger shell. So maybe those were the scarecrows. Because the 128s were relatively rare, they'd really stand out. But yeah, it's hard to know how to reconcile stuff seen during the war with what we know, what surviving documents we have. In particular, one of the big things with Bomber Command is all the talks of encountering German single-seat fighters at night. In 1942 and 1943, when we only really know that the Germans were using single-engine fighters for sure, with the wild boar tactics in the middle of 43. So we know the Germans used them from the mid to late 43 period, but the bomber crews are claiming to encounter them for up to a year before that. And Bomber Command kind of believed they were being used as well, but there's no German records to say that they were using single-engine fighters in 42 and early 43, so how do you reconcile that? Makes it confusing for sure. Now, this is interesting. The Americans are dropping British 250 British-type incendiaries. And I don't know what they're referring to, because I know the British have 30-pound incendiaries, and then they have the 4-pound incendiaries. So I'm not entirely sure what these 250-pound British-type incendiaries are. I really do have to look it up. The M47A1 incendiaries make sense. Well, this is the bombing of Kiel. Strike photo show, bombing. It's interesting, Colombia. Yeah, I think the, didn't they only use the 128s for the most part on the flak towers? Anyways, I think for the Hamburg raid, I'll mention the Kiel raid, but I'm definitely not going to spend the time animating. It's not going to be really, it's not pertinent to the episode, and it's just extra work. So I'll mention that they bombed Kiel. I'm not really going to focus on it, so... Yeah, the Kiel force only loses 4 B-17s versus the 18 lost by the Hamburg force. No fighter support, that's the route. This is the supplementary British, the supplementary British raids. 12 Mitchells with 7 squadrons of Spitfighters escorting to Amsterdam. 18 Marauders with 8 squadrons of Spitfires to Ghent. Oh, that must be, the 18 Marauders must be American ones, because that's the third bomb wing that I saw earlier. And the first one draws up 2 Staffel, and the second 18 Marauders and escorts draw up 1 Staffel. I think Staffel is how you say it. Cloby, you could probably correct me if I'm wrong. And then the fighter sweeps don't do anything, of course, because the Germans could usually figure out what those were. Main attack. I'm glad that I got into school earlier enough that I learned how to read cursive writing, because apparently they really don't teach cursive writing anymore these days. So I can actually kind of read this stuff, though I don't do too much with cursive, so it's a little bit of a struggle. You have to have AI in the future be able to read cursive for historians if they're not trained. Yeah, it's not really that important, that stuff. Staffel? So, Staffel? Or... So I will probably model this stuff slightly, but just to show that these are happening. I won't go into anything too much about the raids, and I'll just mention in the documentary that they drew some of the fighters away. It's specifically the bombing raid on Hamburg with the Americans that I'll focus on, because it's about the Hamburg raids. Stuffel. Really? Stuffel? Stuffel. I'll look it up on a text-to-speech thing so I can get close to it. I'll just say Staffel at the moment. Or you think doofel bag or duffel bag is how I imagine it. Or I've always called it duffel bag. Spend here all day trying to get my my pronunciation working, but I always feel bad for the British fighter crews still flying Spitfire 5s in 1943, let alone 1944. I mean, it was already... I always kind of feel that the Spitfire 5 was like, at least in comparison to the aircraft it faced, was probably the for lack of a better word, the worst Spitfire variant. Because it doesn't seem like it seemed like the 109 F series was generally a bit better, and then you had the Focke-Wulfs as well, which just completely outclassed it. I hadn't heard that one, Arnold. I know about them flicking the believing if they flicked the IFF on and off that they could jam German radar. And Bombercan just kind of let them do it because it was a bit of a placebo. But this was in 1942. Never heard about the H2S rumor though. There's some pretty good stuff about the diversionary stuff, but I really won't need it. Number 11 group reports. Okay. Anyways, this isn't pertinent. This stuff's always interesting. The Americans listening into the German wireless transmissions. So this is what they're hearing the Germans talking about in regards to the American bombers. I don't know if I could use that in the video at all. Might just add too much fluff as well. This is kind of the extreme kind of fading you can get with some of the documents. I have this big thick well, I can't really call it thick because it's all digital, but I have this big document on the 8th Air Force's operational research section, and I was really interested in reading it. I got it about like a year and a half ago, and it's just like hundreds of pages of this kind of fading. I'm just like, wow, I can't use this. Like, I don't think there's even enough to try to put this in a photo editor program and try to bring it to light. It's just because at some point you just diminishing returns. Especially you see this kind of distortion stuff where you get the darker and the lighter. Like at some point you start trying to bring out the black so much you get this effect, and there's just there's not much, and you just can't make anything out. Yeah, you can make out very briefly the some of the wording. It's just all faded. Oh, it's more clear down here, obviously. Part 4 operations. And this seems to all be the fighter command stuff. 11 group, 10 group. Spitfires. Another blank page. Yeah, like I said, fortunately other than showing that there's some of these supporting stuff, I won't be covering the Spitfire and stuff, the RAF stuff too much on for the raids on the Netherlands. And these are the field orders the Americans send out. Unfortunately, these ones are blurry. This is what it looks like when I take my glasses off and I try to read stuff. G navigation, because the American bomber commands lended a portion of the American bombers have G sets for navigation. So you see a lot of this stuff on American field orders. 8th Fighter Command narrative of operations. So the it's not really that important because the Americans don't send any escorts with the bombers to Hamburg. 24 Spitfires of the 331st and 327. I wonder if these are American Spitfires. Because I know early in 1943 there were still the American Eagle squadrons, which were brought over, were still flying Spitfires, but I kind of thought they converted by July 43. But 331 and 332, those sound like American fighter squadron numbers. Anyone? On the other hand, 411, 412, maybe 3... Because a lot of the American fighter squadrons tend to be in the 300s. But the British are kind of all over the place. Maybe I'm... Yeah, see, 4th Fighter Group, which is American, 334th and 336 squadrons. The 300s seem to be American squadrons. But again, not really that important. The Americans just do fighter sweeps, which don't really do much in terms of the bombing rate on Hamburg. There's a bit of a rough map showing the raids on Amsterdam. Yeah, I did a tour with Ted Barris. He's also on the he's been on the World War II TV channel a couple of times as well. But I did a bomber command tour with him back in 2019, me and my father, and he took us to one of the RAF bases. But yeah, being in Canada, not a lot of access to those bases for sure. It's amazing how quickly technological upgrades happen in those days. I guess war does hasten the pace and loosen the... Yeah, you wonder... I was watching a video about the... from the Mustard's channel about the F-15. And, you know, it's a 50-year-old airframe that just gets upgraded over time. And I'm like, I wonder if, like, there was a war with China... You know, God forbid, I hope there never happens. But if there was a war with China and the U.S., how quickly, like... those 50-year-old airframes would get discarded. And it is interesting, yeah, because they went through so many versions so quickly during those couple of years of World War II, whereas the preceding years it was like 20 or 30 years of biplanes leading up to the war. Then all of a sudden you're already flying jets. No, another blurry page. Yeah, money available for war, but not for other things. German fighter action. I know this group. I've seen references to. I'm not gonna even try to pronounce it. Yafus or something like that. But I've seen this kind of... The Germans were like trying to... They had a really bizarre way of breaking up districts in occupied Europe. And I know there was efforts in 1943 to try to consolidate these under a single headquarters by, I think, Milch. But like there was a lot of resistance, the whole fiefdom thing in the Third Reich. The first, this is all based on the radio intercept stuff. The first warning was heard at 1451 of hostiles 5 to 10 miles offshore between various towns. German pilots apparently had little difficulty in making contact, and one was heard going into the attack at 1502. Inter-squad? Revealed no details of the engagement, which do not appear to have been prolonged much beyond 1512. From 1515, aircraft was asking permission to land, reporting that all hostiles had dispersed. Radio traffic ceased. Yeah, I've heard that joke before, Cloby. I think my dad told it to me years ago. But no, I've heard the name of the town change. I think that can change from time to time. I've heard it in relation to Berlin as well. The pilot was flying into Berlin. Just gonna scroll through this quickly. Map. Just trying to get a feel for what's in here. Essen 700. This must be a Part 3 German Air Force defense activity. This must be Bomber Command stuff. Yeah, I was reading a book on the Hamburg Raid, and the guy had some photos of a lot of the areas that got destroyed before the raid on Hamburg. And it was like the older sections, especially the working sections. I wouldn't call it beautiful, but it was definitely it was a different style of architecture than, as I understand, is in Hamburg today, for obvious reasons. But it was interesting because he was showing how a lot of the streets were quite narrow at the time, which really, when you had the firestorm, it really amplified. You had the gusting of the wind down these narrow streets, which was like how you got those stories of people being picked up and essentially pulled into the fires, because it was just like so much air going down such a small street. I mean, it's pretty grim, but seeing the photos, you can you're like, oh, that makes sense that could happen. Yeah, the Germans destroying the Führer bunker. I mean, I can understand the rationale, but at the same time, yeah, just like the idea that like we literally ground down the bunker and built a parking lot over top. You're just like, well, that's one way to preserve your history. At least it's not a building over top of it. But certainly I could see that place could have been big money nowadays in terms of a tourist destination. People going through the Führer bunker. And this is the room where Hitler shot himself. You'd have to have guards there to stop the neo-Nazis from putting flowers or something, though. Well, East German government, I guess. Which, yeah, not exactly a democratically voted government at the same time, but I mean, they were Germans at the same, so I guess it's an interesting debate about who you could technically hold responsible for that. Anywho, I've been staring at documents for an hour. I'm just gonna quickly see what else is here. Wish it a lot faded in this first one. Hamburg Raid. So there's some pretty good stuff about how the Germans reacted. Now what's interesting, you get like a second copy. So also the 25th. This one's a different style though. Much clearer, fortunately. Now this looks like a copy of the first one. It's just, I'm not sure why there's two copies. Oop, some bombing photos. Yeah, I don't know enough about my East German history anyways, so I can't really say about who's responsible. Kriegsmarine Werft. Not gonna even try. This is actually a great shot. I saw this last night when I was looking through. It's one of the bomb plotting photos, but you can see as the bomb plot, and that's actually the thumbnail I chose for this video. Forts and enemy aircraft over the Blumenvoss shipyard in Hamburg. You see the German fighter going in for the attack on the B-17s down here. And some of the flak. This is from one of the ramrod raids, the dropping on the airfield. Especially when you know about the overclaiming stuff by the 8th Air Force. When you see this kind of stuff where they're trying to analyze extract whatever information they can from how many German fighters were claimed shot down, you just kind of, I don't know, it almost seems a little silly. The Germans write off about 7 fighters in total against the Americans. The bomber crews claimed 44 for sure destroyed and 7 probable. So you see the Americans trying to be like, okay, what ranges did we destroy these fighters at? And it's using like bad data essentially. And you see this with some of the other operational research reports. I have one where it's like the effectiveness of different American gun positions, and they're trying to base it off the claims destroyed. And when you read kind of between the lines in the report, I feel like the operational research guys, because they're smart and they realize something doesn't match up, because there's gun positions that are objectively really poorly designed on the B-17. Interestingly enough, the tail position on the B-17, those 2 tail guns, is a horrendously terrible gun position, because they can objectively measure its bullet dispersion and all these other issues, and it's the worst gun position on the B-17 by far. Yet it essentially the number of claims made by tail gunners is right up there with the top turret and the ball turret gunners. And the top and the ball turrets are by far the most effective positions on the B-17. And you can kind of see like the confusion a little bit when you read the 8th Air Force operational analysis reports, because they're like, well, this tailgun position is demonstrably completely horrible. It's like not combat effective at all. But all the data are being given by the 8th Air Force is telling us it's shooting down lots of German fighters. So what the hell's going on? So you can't, I don't know, I kind of sense this confusion when I read the 8th Air Force's report, because they're like, yeah, this position's not great, it really needs to be redesigned, but it's also really effective at shooting down fighters. And it's just because the data they're being given is just bad. Oh, can't read that, barely read that. Oh, this is the raid on the 16 bombers that went on Heilde. I'm not sure if it's Hilde or Heilde. Fortunately, it's all too blurry. We can kind of see target of opportunity bombing by the 8th Air Force. Good luck at the gym, Cloby. Hope your gains are great. Hamburg. It's pretty good bomb plotting stuff. There's a fair amount here. I'll have to look at it later. I'm gonna actually start modeling now that I'm back. Let's get on to the bomber command raid. Uh-oh. Gonna slow down on me again. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I had about the, out of the 5, so when I last did this, I was plotting the losses of the bombers. So I have the Wellington, the 3 Wellingtons, a Lancaster, and a Halifax. So it's time to bring up the raid report and figure out when exactly those bombers are going to be going down. So the bombing started around 21:34 hours. So the first Wellington went down at 19:32. So basically, as soon as the Wellington force crossed the coast, basically the poor guy got shot down. So it makes sense to have the mark show up around this point. I got the Wellingtons crossing the coast. So, bombers cross, and the mark comes up. Lancaster shot down at 2150. Lancasters showed up in the first wave and the last wave. I don't know what wave that one would have been in particular. 2150 though would have been during the actual bombing itself. Oops. Yeah, this must have been one of the Lancasters at the tail wave, given where it was shot, given at what point in time it was shot down. So we'll have the mark go up right about now. Of course, you don't always know what the actual story is behind why these guys were shot down at what time. It might have been a late bomber that wasn't in the bomber stream. It might have been one that maybe had some kind of difficulty here, got damaged and tried to turn around, was caught on the way back. It's a little bit of guesswork, but the mark coming up there is not terrible in terms of where the location of the raid is. The bomber stream should probably be longer. Third Halifax was shot down at 2200 hours. So we'll put it somewhere around here, since that roughly matches up in timing. And that's when the Halifaxes would have been crossing the area. Well, I might bring it forward. So I'm going to be zooming into the raid at that point. So one goes down roughly that time. 22-25 hours for the... Oh, I'm not even showing the right screen. 22-25 hours for the Wellington. That was shot down all the way over there. It's quite a... Once again, what was this guy doing? Because 22-25... the raid would have still been going on. It's pretty incredible there's a Wellington all the way over here by that point. Yeah, no, the navigation for sure, but it's like especially if these bombers turn back for some reason, they'd be very much on their own and very obvious to German radar. And, you know, if you're flying over the coast on your own, you're going to have a lot of flak directing its attention over you. But, like, the Wellingtons, technically they were bombing between 2142 and 2200 hours, or 2115.5 and 2110 hours. So for a guy to be shot down at the coast 10 minutes after the, you know, anybody between like 30 minutes to, or 40 minutes to 10 minutes after, I don't feel like you can cover that. I don't feel like you can cover that distance in 30 or 40 minutes. So it makes you wonder what was going on, but it's just we don't have any information. I'll just have him pop up here so I can quickly talk about one Wellington being shot down on the way back. And then the other two marks, I can't really, I'll have to mention it after the raid, so I'll just have them show up in a screenshot. Okay, that covers the losses. Now I gotta actually start filling in what the German flak defenses were like and everything. So searchlights running, so that's over the town. Number of crews reported, stationary beams, heavy flak, yeah. Considerable opposition was encountered from heavy flak en route at Holland and in the coast region. Heavy and light flak was also fired from ships off the Dutch coast. 20 aircraft were hit by heavy flak and sustained minor damage, 4 of those over Holland. So I have some flak animations and stuff as they cross the coast here at the start. Kind of stretch thing. I'll have to, man, I'll actually have to go backwards. Negative 200 start it. I can't do that though. Because I don't want them over the coast when I start the video. I want them approaching the coast. I didn't leave them enough room. I'll have to move everything slightly. So select objects. They're all bunched up there, so I'll have to start the video with the camera kind of looking in this direction. So it's not a whole bunch of ugly bunched up aircraft clipping into each other there at the start, because they'll look kind of bad. So I guess the opening shot will be something like this. And that way I can have them cross the coast and show the flak starting to fire at this point. Except, I've thrown off the timing of all my markers now. There, that should be roughly where I want them. I can delete these green markers. I don't need them anymore. Where were they placed, though? Yeah, okay, where am I? Now, get some light flak in there. There's my flak at. This is what I use to generate the light flak. It's kind of just a point that'll shoot out little shapes, and it follows this path right here. So that's how I get a kind of a weaving side-to-side pattern. Which does a pretty decent job. If I start at 100 and end at 300, I'll start went wrong. Something went wrong there. Weird. What's going on? 15 is where I wanted to leave the light. Oh, did I not? Did I not actually bring over the... I think I know what happened. I don't actually have... You link these... So there's a source that they... There's an actual item that they shoot out, which it's a shape that you create. And I don't think I brought that over when I created... when I rebuilt the set, because my original set was a little messy. And I don't think I brought over the tracer, the actual tracers that are supposed to shoot up. Just a little bit embarrassing. I'll have to bring up an old map and figure out what they're called. Let's save just in case. I'm sure yeah, light flak. Yeah, I didn't bring the tracer over, which is the actual thing that's shooting up. So it is under light flak. So I'll want to... stupid fire alarm. It's been doing this all day. They're doing construction, it keeps setting off the alarms. I can close my door. No, there, stopped again. Jeez. Good times in this apartment. Light flak, light flak. Well, I've never heard it do this before. Just mute the microphone and... Or, no, it stopped again. Oh, wrong window's up at this point. So I pinned it. Let's get rid of this. Delete hierarchy. Delete hierarchy. Delete hierarchy. This is all I want, the tracer. Yeah, sure, let's copy it. Light flak. Paste. There's a tracer. And, now where do I attach the... Been a little while. Once again, instance object, I believe. Now, I haven't been able to figure out why it shoots why it shoots a whole bunch of tracers down, but when I put it below the map, you don't really see it, and it does enough tracer going up that it's fine. It didn't used to do that, but it started doing it at one point, and I can't figure out why it just won't point everything up, so you just kind of compensate. It's not the end of the world, but it's annoying. So... Oh, I didn't quite want to do that. Want the tracer below the map so you guys don't see it. The actual symbol. I did something wrong here. What the heck? That's not what I wanted it to do. Weird. X, well, oh, Z is what I, duh. Oh, music stopped playing. Just put that back on. Now why won't you Alt-G? It's awfully annoying. Just have to manually drag it back. It's number 8. Let's bring him over to the route the bomber's going to fly in on. Bombers cross here. Roughly at 261. Frame 261 is when I want these guns to start firing. Delete hierarchy. We'll stagger them a little so it doesn't look like they're opening fire at the exact same time. 230. 270. And they're going to be firing for as long as the bomber stream's flying through. It's about frame 1553. So bombers arrive over. Flak starts shooting. And flak stops. Okay, that's the light flak for the way in. Now you get the heavy flak in there. Oops. Are there actually any heavy flaks in there? It doesn't. Looks like it's missing the actual. That's probably why this program's not slow. No, no, the actual. There should be. Oh, it might not know where the flak volumes are. Because everything's now rearranged because I lost the hard drive. That's interesting. Doesn't have the volumes anymore. Hmm. I can't even find them. Blender downloads. Was it explosions? I can't remember which one. Not the animated clouds. Oh yeah, gasoline explosion was the name of it. Man, oh god, I hope I don't have to redo them completely. Oh, I did this wrong. Control A. And let's start at 200. Okay. Now let's see if it doesn't render. I think yeah, it does, kinda. You can tell it renders because my computer just slows to a crawl when it, yep. This is the thing that takes, this is the thing that just takes the longest time to, just slows rendering to a crawl. That was way too fast. It should be longer than that. Something's gone wrong. Is it going backwards? What is it doing? Frames 120 seconds. Might just have to rebuild this from scratch, unfortunately. Failed to load volume. Maybe it's just because it's out of order. Maybe that'll do something. Oops. Yeah, there we go. That's the animation I'm looking for. Getting big. Starts small, gets bigger. Okay, I just need to reload them for every single one in that box now. Great. But at least I know what the issue is. Let's go somewhere it's not going to cause my computer to have a stroke. Oh boy, that's gonna be a problem with some of my other ones. Okay. So they'll come through, and it's from about 200 to 1500. So that's what, 1300 frames, and I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So roughly one of these can be going off every close to 100 frames. Let's choose some random numbers. 420. What am I running this thing at? I feel like everything's moving slower than it should. 30 frames per second is what I do my animations at. Oh, not 30 frames per second. That's not great. I don't want the bombers moving that slowly. Which means I should figure out what speed I want the bombers to fly in at before I do anything more, because then there's just more to change afterwards if I don't decide now. That just feels too slow. Am I looking at 176 seconds? What's that, 3 minutes for this animation? Really, that's only... Oh, I know what's going on. It's because I have so many bombers being rendered. It starts to, That's what's happening. Because I'm rendering, because I have so much on screen now, it's starting to slow everything to a bit of a crawl. So this thing's rendering at 16 and 17 frames a second instead of 30. So everything's going about half as slow as it would look in the final animation. Good thing I did the math and double-checked that, because I didn't think it should be looking that slow. It's just because it's having trouble rendering in real time. Raid reports. Okay. So, flak at the coast. It does say there's flak in the coastal region, but do I really want to deal with that? Not really. They probably also encountered flak from Amsterdam. I'm sure there were bombers that strayed over. Bring the flak box in, so it's a bit more over here. Now I just need to bring the searchlights in. I have those. Do have searchlights in? I have to append those as well. I do have searchlights. They're just under the map. It's closer to the speed the animation will be at. Okay, why aren't my searchlights not spinning around? Oh, the animation must have not carried over. It's not a big deal, but it's annoying. Too fast. I feel like in previous versions of Blender there was an option that I could just, because this is a newer version that I was using, I feel like there was a set option in the window here rather than me just having to keyframe everything. Is it fixed position? Well, actually, hmm. That should be the only place I have to do. Oh, I think I click on the circle actually. Path animation, frames 300. I think that should slow it down. Yeah, there we go. That's what I was forgetting. I think the searchlights are a little short. I think the color isn't right either. They were translucent beforehand. Oh boy, I'm gonna have to go back and adjust my base model so I don't have to change all this every time I do a new raid. I definitely lost stuff. Yeah, alpha, there we go. I can kind of see through them. Which doesn't really matter what you do with the alpha when you've... Okay, duplicate the searchlight cones a couple of times. Oops, not where I want them to be duplicated. And spin them around so there's a little bit of difference. And then I just need for them to essentially turn on and turn off. Which that also didn't carry over, which is annoying. Save. So I don't want them on at this point. So searchlight cone. It's one hell of a brightness. 0.05 was it? No, that matters. Yeah, so if I turn that down to 0, it's clear. What are they doing outside? And searchlights turn on. Flak starts firing. Everything. And the lights can turn off at this point. Now. No, what did I just do? Damn it. I deleted the keyframe. Because since I have the big map loaded up, it's basically going to take a full second for me to... There. Oh, actually, apparently not. Duplicate. Oh, what else am I? And they turn off. And just need to do it for the way out. And then once I add in the weather, I actually should be done the this part of the animation, which is nice. Let's call this searchlights in. That's one cell counter on the way in. And I'll just put everything under it. Fire equipment. And duplicate that. Use the duplications to cover the way out, so I don't have to redo it from scratch. Track balls. I'll need to rename them, yeah, that's right. Oh, no, I don't need to. They're already, 6th. Actually, I do need to. Okay, so 6 through 10. Should start a little earlier then. Right here. Searchlights on the way out. Duplicate the light flak. Unfortunately, I don't have a copy and paste function with these guys that's quite as good. I will have to punch in the flak timings manually. Cannon. They were 86 is when they start, or 3868. Stop around 5150. Ah, damn it. I did not create their own entities for it, so I changed the timings of the... Oh, shit. Damn it. I wonder if I can undo that all. Okay, so that's the last of the light flak. Now just put some heavy flak in there at the end. Cover the way out. Select hierarchy. Where's duplicate? Done. Select hierarchy. Copy. Paste. Now painfully change all the time units for each individual one. I'm sure there's an easier way to do this, I just haven't figured it out. Frames 20, what the? That's not right. They should all be their full... I mean, what is even the full length of these? It's 130 frames animation. It should be the full length. Oops. That explains why they weren't showing up. I know that they're full length. Uh-oh. Please don't tell me I just did what I think I did. No, these should be individual, I think. Render this and see how it looks. Well, the last thing I'll have to do on this, while it's rendering slightly, is figure out what's the weather like. Weather experienced. So 1010's cloud tops to 6,000 to 8,000 feet over the North Sea, becoming 14,000 to 18,000 feet over the Dutch coast and towering towards target. Similar on return, but cloud broke about 30 miles from English coast. Target's 1010, breaking to 810s. So I'll have to have it, some clouds covering the entire area, which I can do, because I've done. And then I'll have that fade out at the beginning of the animation. Oh. Well, if it was 1010's cloud, then there would be no searchlights on the way in, so I didn't need to make those because the searchlights wouldn't be able to basically get through. Bit of a derp on my part. Yeah, there's no mention of searchlights at the coast, so I don't know why I spent the time adding those in. Blender may have crashed on me. Yeah, good thing I saved a bunch. Let's close it and start it up again. Okay, what did I lose? Looks like the flak still works. I guess I didn't lose anything. That's good. Thank you, autosave. Okay, so I should just need to put in the clouds now, and then I'll essentially be done this section of the raid. So... what raid? I had one raid where I had quite a bit of cloud. And since I don't have the clouds on here, I'll have to bring those, I'll have to drag those in. I want to say it was the Munich raid, maybe. Oh. Might have not thought this through, because if it has the high-res map, it's going to take forever to open. Yeah, I didn't think this went through. It's like 5 minutes to open when I use the high-res map. It's not worth the wait. I should have one that I just have the clouds on. Okay. Base Blender, clouds. I think this one. Oh, this is the this is my 1010's cloud render. I want to drag that one in. What is this? Oh, that's ground haze. Well, that would work. Ground haze solid. What's the difference? Oh, that's just the That's the solid. 1010's cloud was this one. So, file, append. Base Blender. Clouds. Collection. 1010's cloud. Oops, I'm in the wrong area. Don't want it there. Select objects. Let's turn the heavy FLAC off so my computer doesn't have a stroke trying to render it. Have to wait a sec for the map to load. Stupid 300 megabyte map. I don't know why I have the high res still in there. I should put it to the low res map so I'm not waiting. I'm just torturing myself by forgetting to do these things. Hello to the three of you here with me. I'm surprised anyone's interested in this particular part of the presentation. Because everything is all technical difficulties. Oh, that was a mistake. Take a look at the raid report a little bit more while it's loading. So, searchlights done. Gonna have the cloud done in a sec. FLAC done. Fighters, basically there were pretty much no fighters that night, according to Theo Bowden's book. Though interestingly, they reported 4 attacks and 26 approaches, which is a lot more than Bowden suggests for airborne. 2 attacks, 14 approaches, and 2 follows occurred en route to the target. Switch here. That's what Theo says about the Night Fighter effort this night. 455 aircraft were sent out to bomb Duisburg and the Ruhr Valley between 2140 and 2248 hours. The force lost 6 aircraft, 3 Wellingtons, a PFF Mosquito, a Halifax, and a Lancaster. At least 3 of these were shot down by flak over the Netherlands. 25 main bombers returned with flak scars. Yeah. Low 10 cloud over Nakiag bases and Netherlands, and the absence of any moon and strong winds hampered the unfolding of an ineffective Himmelbelt operation. Only an estimated 7 Himmelbelt sorties were flown against the Duisburg force. Returning, bomber crews report 2 combats with Night Fighter on the outward route over the Netherlands and 1 on the return track, none of which resulted in damage of any of the heavies involved. So, basically no Night Fighters this night. And I guess if it's only 7, then I don't need to put that many Night Fighters on the map in the boxes. I don't even know which boxes they'd be in. No hints. But... still loading. Eventually it'll work. Yeah, I might just call it here, because this is an annoying little bug happening right now. Anyways, thanks for everyone who tuned in. I'm gonna have a bite to eat. Oh, there we go. Okay. Now I actually have, it finally loaded in. I can quickly do the clouds, and then I'll call it. Takes forever to render that map in juice. Okay, I do want to go to wireframe for this, but now when I... No, it doesn't do this again, does it? Yeah, no, it should be a lot faster. That said, I do not need this high level of visuals for this part, and I don't want to deal with the map doing what it is, so I'm going to load in the low res map. So I'm not dealing with... There we go. It should be a lot faster. Kinda. What is... Why is this? Let me know, Crawl. Probably best just to turn off everything that might cause it to slow down. Oh, it's gotta be the volume at this point. Yeah, there we go. It's a lot faster than I've turned off the volume. Though I do need the volume. But that's why I'm gonna be in wireframe. Okay. Select the object, drag it to the coast, copy and paste it a couple of times. It's not quite what... Something happened. Something went wrong there. No, what the hell's it doing? It's supposed to... It's not supposed to... It's supposed to keep it in a separate folder so I can just turn it on and off. No. Well, I'll just have to drag and drop them afterwards. Okay, those gaps are a little too obvious. Yeah, thanks, Arnold. Jumped the gun a little bit. Once I get the clouds done, I'll log off. Because that'll actually, once I have the clouds in... Well, I still have to do the mosquitoes. Well, I need to eat something soon anyways. But once the clouds are in, it's basically almost everything's done. Let me change the rendering distance, since that's a little confusing. Where's my camera gun? I need to see what this is going to look like. Camera's looking in the wrong direction. Camera focal point. There. Camera rig. There. This will be good enough. For what I need it to do. Let's see what this thing actually looks like. Yeah, needs to be thicker than that. What's going on with the clouds, though? They're not how I remember them looking. Maybe I need a... It might be a little bit too below the map. I think that's what it is. I think I have everything a little too below the map, so it's most of the... It's not doing what I wanted it to do. That's better, except the bombers are in the cloud. No, that wasn't the right call. Undo. Tile size is good. Oh, yeah. Forgot to turn the solids off. Okay, I'll call it quits here. I'm not going to try to... I don't want to figure out what's going on with the clouds quite right now. Might do that on my own time, because that's... I got to go into all the details and everything. Anyways, have a good day, everyone.